They say Ekwensu can speak with 1,000 tongues and lie with every single one. But what if I told you this spirit of mischief once ignited a war so fierce, so long-lasting, that even the rivers refused to flow between the clans involved? This is not just a tale. This is the origin of one of the most dangerous trickster spirits in African mythology. And it all started with a whisper. So, sit back, because this is African Myths Unveiled. Before we dive deeper into the story, I have a quick question for you. I know that many of you are tuning in from different parts of the world, all united by a love for African mythology. So, I'd love to reconnect. Drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from. I'll be in the comment section engaging with you. And if you're enjoying the content, a like and subscription would mean the world to me. All right, let's get back to the story. In the rich spiritual tapestry of the Igbo people of southeastern Nigeria, few names strike both awe and caution, like Ekwensu, not merely a demon or devil, as colonial narratives have attempted to paint him. Ekwensu is far more nuanced, far more ancient. Ekwensu is the embodiment of chaos, negotiation, cunning, and war. He is neither fully evil nor completely benign. Rather, he is the spirit who tests boundaries, the master of strategy, the tongue that never tires. To some, he's the god of trade, due to his mastery of bargains and deals. To others, he's the harbinger of unrest, the one who whispers lies for fun, then watches the world burn. So, where did he come from? According to oral tradition, Ekwensu was born in the shadow of Ani, the earth goddess. He did not come from the earth's womb, but from her breath, her exhale, her impulse, while Ani gave birth to law, fertility, and harmony. Ekwensu was what happens when rules are bent. He was forged from imbalance. His spirit danced in the liminal space between peace and war, justice and impulse. In the celestial gathering of the Alusi, the deities, Ekwensu was the one who challenged every decision. When the gods said, "Let there be rain," he said, "What if there were fire instead?" When peace was declared between clans, Ekwensu offered alternative truths, half-facts, twisted words, irresistible whispers. Not because he hated peace, but because he loved the game. But one day, the game became more than a joke. In a time long before written memory, two powerful Igbo clans lived in harmony, Umudike and Umuokoro. Their lands were divided by the river Andu, a gentle stream that flowed like a silver thread between emerald hills. The clans shared festivals, married into one another, and prayed at the same sacred groves. The elders said, "We are two names, but one blood." This irritated Ekwensu. He had been watching, unseen, dancing on the smoke of their cooking fires, hiding in the rustle of their plantain leaves. He had played small tricks, making chickens vanish, souring palm wine overnight. But the people only laughed and blamed mischievous children. No chaos, no glory. Until one night, during the Aja Ani festival, Ekwensu took a different shape. He appeared in a dream to Nwokeoji, the young and ambitious son of Umudike's chief priest. In the dream, Ekwensu's voice was like a snake covered in honey. "Your neighbors plot to steal your land," he whispered. "I saw them bury charms on your side of the river. Tomorrow, you will find them, and your father will praise you, and you will rise." Nwokeoji woke up sweating, but the voice echoed in his mind. The next morning, he went to the riverbank, and there, under a smooth rock, he found a small bundle wrapped in red cloth. Feathers, bones, a blackened coin. He didn't know that Ekwensu had placed it there. Back in Umudike, fear spread like wildfire. Charms, on our land. They summoned the elders. They summoned diviners. The result was always the same. This is an act of spiritual war. The people of Umuokoro were stunned when accused. "We know nothing of charms," their chief shouted. "Why would we curse those we share our harvest with?" But suspicion is a fire that eats everything, and Ekwensu fanned the flames. He whispered into the ears of Umuokoro's warriors. They prepare their weapons at night. He whispered into the hearts of Umudike's hunters. Their drums are silent for a reason. And so, it began. A single whisper turned into a wall of silence. A silence turned into an insult. An insult turned into a slap. A slap turned into a spear. And the river Ndu, once a lifeline of unity, became a grave. They say when two brothers fight, it is the stranger who inherits their father's land. But what happens when their war is started not by greed, but by a whisper from a spirit who thrives in smoke and shadows? The war that tore Umudike and Umuokoro apart was no ordinary war. It was born of manipulation, fed by fear, and guided, at every step, by the invisible hand of Ekwensu. Once the first spear was thrown, there was no turning back. The warriors of Umudike stormed across the river Ndu under moonlight, their faces marked in ash and camwood. The people of Umuokoro, caught unprepared, defended with sticks, machetes, and the raw fury of betrayal. The peaceful hills that once echoed with laughter and market songs now roared with battle cries and the clash of metal on bone. Ekwensu danced among them. No one saw him, but he was everywhere. When Umudike's warriors sharpened their blades, he whispered, "Strike them before they strike you." When Umuokoro's seers gathered for divination, he clouded their visions, filling their kola nuts with lies. Even the oracles grew confused. "The spirits are silent," they said. Or worse, they are laughing. Years passed. The war grew cold, then hot, then cold again. Children who were born after the first battle knew nothing of peace. They were raised on war songs and bedtime stories of betrayal. Nwoke-oji, the young man whose dream had sparked the conflict, had grown older, and now wore the leopard skin cloak of a war leader. His eyes were sharp with pride and burden. Yet in moments of silence, when the fires died down and the wind whispered through the trees, he sometimes wondered, was it all real? The charm? The dream? But the truth was too heavy, too dangerous. And besides, Ekwensu had long since moved on to bigger games. It is said that one day, a group of children, starving and lost, wandered too close to the ancient forest between the two clans. There, in the grove of forgotten gods, they met an old woman with skin like cracked bark and eyes like dust. She asked them, "Why do your people fight?" One child replied, "Because they cursed us." Another said, "Because our fathers said so." The old woman nodded, then smiled sadly. "Do you know who told your fathers?" They shook their heads. She whispered, "The one who lies for fun." When the children returned to their villages and repeated her words, the elders grew afraid. They knew who she spoke of. Ekwensu. This was the first crack in the wall. A few wise elders, desperate to end the suffering, journeyed into the hills to find Ogbuefi Nemeka, the last living priest of the old path. A man said to have once looked Ekwensu in the eye and lived. They found him blind, but still powerful. "The spirit you fight," he told them, "cannot be beaten with blades. He feeds on your rage, your need to be right. Every insult you refuse to forgive, every revenge you plan in silence. That is his feast." "How do we stop him?" they asked. He smiled. "You don't. You starve him." The message from Ogbuefi Nemeka, the blind priest of the old ways, spread slowly through the clans. You do not fight Ekwensu. You deny him. You starve him. But how does a people who have known only war remember peace? It began with a secret meeting at night under the twisted Iroko tree that grew between both territories. Elders from Umudike and Umuokoro came cloaked, afraid even to look one another in the eye. They were tired. Their children had died. Their yams no longer grew rich. The river had turned sour. One elder, her voice shaking, said, "We must speak his name, Ekwensu, and we must end his game." It was dangerous to invoke the trickster directly, but they agreed. Together, they built a shrine, not to worship, but to challenge. It was constructed from broken weapons, shattered masks, and blood-stained garments. Around it, they lit no fire, only silence. It was a shrine not of fear, but of renunciation. They invited the oldest seer woman, a keeper of forgotten songs. That night, with moonlight like bone, she began to chant, not the praises of gods, but the names of the dead. Chukwueki, who died in the first ambush. Ngozi, who vanished into the river. Obina, who never learned to speak. With each name, the air thickened, the wind stopped, and then he arrived. Ekwensu, not in flesh, but in shadow. The fireless shrine flickered with sudden heat, and a voice came, not loud, but playful. "I only gave you a nudge," he said. "You did the rest." A rustle, a laugh, a voice moving from one ear to the next. "You needed someone to blame, and I wore the mask." But the people stood still, no fear, no anger, just grief. And that, for Ekwensu, was poison. When the clans stood together, not as rivals but as mourners, the spirit had nothing to feed on. No vengeance, no spite, no ego, just truth. And so, with one last hiss of smoke, he faded. This myth is more than just a tale of war and trickery. In Igbo cosmology, Ekwensu is not the devil, as later colonial interpretations suggested. He is a complex spirit, embodying both chaos and cleverness, war and negotiation, deception and diplomacy. He represents that inner voice in all of us, the one that whispers doubt, suspicion, or vengeance, especially when trust is vulnerable. The story of Ekwensu reminds us that the most dangerous wars are not fought with weapons, but with ideas manipulated into lies, and that sometimes, to defeat the trickster, we must first look in the mirror. If you enjoyed this story and want more powerful African myths brought to life, hit the like button, subscribe, and drop a comment below. Which African myth or legendary spirit should I cover next? Until next time, remember, truth is the trickster's only fear.